Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. I've got a little halo there for the lights. Sorry about that. But let's see, this is May 2021. This is what the magazine used to look like. Feels great to have it in your hands. We're digital now. We don't print them anymore, but always like to see what I was doing. This is me back at one of our events at the recording studio. I've got my Georgia Swarm shirt on. And anyway, that was an excellent event at Rich Hall's recording studio that we did our virtual event at. And this issue was 160 pages, and it's always nice to see what was going on 3 years ago. And we had Christian Brothers, Director of Construction, on the cover. So we thank those guys for gracing the cover. But last issue we printed was in August of 2021, so it was just a couple of months later that we stopped printing it. We still print the magazine on demand, but we're pretty much 100% digital. Last month we had 3.8 million people hit the website, and thank you so much for all you out there finding us and consuming our content. And couldn't do it without you. Hopefully we'll go over 4 million this month. We'll see. My web developer said, yeah, you should go over, and that will be an awesome benchmark. I'm hoping, I said, hey, maybe by the end of the year, we'll have 10 million. That's a wishful thinking, but you know what? You got to think big these days. It's just the reality of it. So today, it's Friday. We're going into the weekend. I'm wearing my swag because University of Denver men's lacrosse, we're in the quarterfinals. We beat Michigan last weekend, and we are playing the Syracuse Orange Men on Sunday at noon down in Towson, which is in Baltimore. And if we win that game, we go in the quarterfinals, which the national tournament is held up in Philly this year. And the final four teams still standing. They play the semifinals on Saturday and then Sunday. If we win on this Sunday, we'll go into Philly. Hopefully we'll win the semis and we'll go in the finals. We got to win 3 more games to bring the trophy home. But you got to play one game at a time. So we got to beat Syracuse first, and then we'll go to Philly, and then hopefully we'll get it done. But very exciting for the boys out west, and I'm sure they're making their trip over and getting themselves getting ready for the big game on Sunday. So with that said, I've got a nice gentleman who I just met when I was up in Chicago for our reception with the RCA. Rainy day in Chicago, but we took the Chicago architectural tour, and everybody showed up, and then we had a nice reception at the Chicago Brew House down on the Riverwalk. I had been to Chicago a million times, and I've always seen those boats going up and down, but I'd never been on, to take the tour. Hour and a half, very informative, and just all in all, a great cruise. It would have been nice to have the weather a little nicer, but I really got some really cool videos. So it was well worth it, and it was good to see some people. And I met this gentleman. His name is Jerry DeLiberato. Hopefully I pronounced it correct. And he's with Bowen. He's with an architecture firm up in northern Ohio in Cleveland. Jerry, say hello to our audience out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you.
Yeah. Jerry and I are from the Northeast. We're both basically from Philly, and we were talking, and anyway, I reached out to him and said, hey, ever been on a podcast? You should be on there. You should tell your story, and we can talk about cheesesteaks and South Street and Atlantic City and all that good stuff. And we had a lot in common. And it's funny, you can always tell where people are from up north. Boston has their own twang, Philadelphia has their own twang, New Jersey, Delaware. It's like me. People, when I say water, it's WADER, not WATER. It's just one of those things. People, where are you from? Like, I'm from Philly. So anyway, Jerry, welcome to the show. And
thank you.
And the way we're going to do this is I do it in 3 parts. You'll tell us your story, where you grew up, where you went to school, married kids, what have you, how you ended up in Bowen. Then we'll talk about the last 3 to 4 years on the roller coaster that we've all been on, lessons learned, and then you'll leave one positive thought or phrase and your contact info, and then we'll close the episode out. So with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Excellent. When you say tell me your story, being from the Northeast, you probably remember the commercial where it was, hey, Jerry, tell us your story. right?
Yeah.
And if you remember, it was about a guy named Jerry who had an appliance store in Brooklyn, Long Island, and those were his commercials. He'd start with "Tell us a story," and he would give them all the sales and all the pitches and what they should be buying and all of that. And it lasted. So when you say, "Tell me your story," I think of Jerry. I think of the other Jerry.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And you know, my story, you know, is interesting in that can briefly sum it up. You know, it's Italian, New Jersey, and construction, right? So those are three qualities that, you know, kind of mark my life. I was born and raised in Jersey City, you know, a great city. When I was there, it wasn't the nicest, but if my parents had the property that they had that we grew up in, probably wouldn't be on the podcast because I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere making millions of dollars from the real estate. But nonetheless, and that city has changed and changed over time. So yeah, you and I have a little commonality with that Northeast. You know, I say water, I say radiator, those kinds of things, and that's a distinction
Radiator,
to us,
exactly. Yeah.
right? Right?
Not a
Is a
radiator,
radiator,
radiator. Exactly.
right? And I even think you and I were rivals in high school. Is that not correct? Where you
Uh,
went to high school?
yeah, yeah, I was a petty guy, and absolutely.
Yeah.
And listen, as a preppy, we played all the prep schools, but we played all the high schools too. So we were always it was like David and Goliath, whether you were playing Montclair, Livingston, I can go down Harrison High School. I mean, all
Oh yeah.
they'd be like, "Oh, the preppies are going to come in. They're gonna," and then we were always the underdog. So we knocked some of them off. Some of them we get a good game. Other ones, they were, just too many people. And it really depended on what year you were in, and but yeah, we were rivals.
They would say to the preppies, you know, thinking that we're soft, right? So we're going to come in, just lay down and roll over, but wasn't the case. But my journey in construction really started when I was a young kid. Started as a laborer, working for my dad. And I quickly learned as a laborer, man, I got to get out of this and do something else because I'm not going to be able to last, right? I was a buff guy at the time, but I knew I needed to get out of that. And I worked for the family business, not the family, but my family, if you know what I mean. Anybody from the Northeast kind of got that one, I think.
No, I know.
And I learned a lot from my dad, and then after 8 years of working with him, I got the bug and said, man, this is easy. I can run my own company. So I started my own construction company, left the business and began building large custom homes in the western part of New Jersey. And, when I left the family business, it was at a time when we were awaiting our first child, a masculine child. If anybody follows the Luca Brasi series with The Godfather, he's saying, may your first child be a masculine child. Well,
Yeah.
that's what we were waiting on. And my mother wasn't happy that we were leaving something secure of the family business and going into your own thing. And then the 80s hit, right? Mid 80s, saving and loan crisis. So I was in a spot where, yikes, I was really hit with hard times.
Interest rates 18%.
Yeah, 18-20%. I think our first mortgage was actually 22%. So I know it's all relative to the viewers, but now that interest rates are 6, 7, 8%, I'm thinking I would gladly have taken that, 200 years ago, but it was crazy. But you could get 18-20% in interest at the bank, which now you get, pennies. So when that hit, then I said, you know what, I gotta get a job. I gotta go back to work. So I started working with general contractors up in New Jersey. And it was during this time that I really understood the benefit of starting and learning construction from the bottom floor up, from a laborer to a site super, an estimator, a PM, a senior PM. And projects I worked on were schools, hospitals, prisons, pharmaceutical labs, restaurants, multifamily, a lot of retail. And then there was a day that came that completely changed my career path. I wasn't looking for it, but there it was. I was working for a general contractor, and the president of the company came to me one day been there for probably about 3 years. And he says, hey, Jerry, did you ever think about getting into sales? And David, sure as I'm sitting here with you, this is exactly what I said to him. I said, no, I never have, not interested. All they do is take long lunches and play lots of golf, right?
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he smiled, and he goes, well, that's all true, but they also make a lot of money. Okay, now he got my attention. So I switched my career path from an operational background more into sales and business development. And I didn't really understand his question that well, but it definitely changed my perspective. And so I probably got half of my career is in field operations. The other half of my career is chasing down relationships in business development and sales. And it kind of odd too. The company I was working for, the VP of sales was really for me coming into his department. But after 8 months, he left and he went and worked for a competitor. And I said, what are you doing? I came over here because I really want to work with you. He goes, don't worry, we'll talk. And
Right.
long story short, 6 months after that he left, he hired me to run the New Jersey office of that construction company. So that was kind of a cool thing. And actually, I got promoted and moved to North Carolina, which, from New Jersey to North Carolina 100 years ago was a big difference. But I had gone to college in North Carolina, so I felt pretty comfortable kind of going back to where I spent 4 years. And then I had opened up an office in Orlando and Birmingham, Alabama. So I had Raleigh, Orlando, Birmingham under my wing, and we developed the entire South, and we're very successful at it. But I can tell you this, Birmingham was not ready for an Italian from New Jersey in construction at that time, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
great city, I love it, but man, it was a different way to do work, I've also been able to, in my career, I've started 7 companies. I had that entrepreneurial bug. Once I left my family business, I felt, man, what else can I do? And even though I worked for other companies, I worked for manufacturing companies, I worked for general contractors, I created companies that helped to diversify the company into a different market segment, a different product type. And Dave, as a salesperson, I have a patent. I have a patent on a construction project that came out of a project I was doing with a client in New Jersey. They were building 300 or 400 senior living apartments in New Jersey, and they needed something for their balconies. The balconies were kind of small. Long story short, I left that. I thought over the weekend, went to manufacturing, and I said, hey, we got an opportunity to make a lot of money on this project, but we don't have a project. We don't have a product. So we developed that, and in the first 8 months of that product, probably about $3.5 million worth of business came into manufacturing and helped fill the manufacturing part of the business. Moved to Ohio from Raleigh. Cleveland is our home 24 years ago. My wife and I been married a long time. We have 2 kids and we have 5 grandkids, and they're all close. So we get to see them all the time. My wife's from Philly. She's back, her family's back east. My family's back east. So we travel back there when we needed to see family. And now, currently, I'm a member of the team at Bowen, a national architectural firm that has a long history, been around since 1959. I didn't start with them, even though I may look like I might have, but great firm doing great projects. And basically, we have 2 groups. We have the commercial group, which is what I'm part of, doing a lot of retail, mixed use, multi-housing, senior living apartments, convenience stores and travel centers, warehousing. And then we have a more of a regionalized civic and public, where we do courthouses, some jail, state police barracks, a lot of transit, buses, trains. So we're very diverse. We're licensed in 48 states, so we pretty much can go where a client needs us to go. And it's been great for me because Bowen has been a client of mine for 7 years when I worked at a national MEP firm. So I got to know the leadership. So when they came to me in what would be last year's 2020, end of 2022, and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about working for an architect?" And I said, "No, I've never worked for an architect, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna build relationships and trying to get work in the door." So it was kind of a good fit. I knew the people here, so I transitioned. I've been here about a year and a half now. It's been great. I get an opportunity to meet people all over the country, work with contractors, work with consultants, and it's a lot of fun. I love what I do. It's definitely a blast for me. My history. But my role of national business development, I think what I continue to learn and tell myself is, focus on chasing the relationship. Don't focus on chasing the project, because projects are going to come and go, but the relationship will stay. How many times do we deal with people at a company and they decide to move to another company? And what happens, what you hope happens, is they call you up and say, "Hey, I'm over here. We need an architect, or we need a contractor." And you have that relationship that transcends wherever you work. And that's really a great feeling. So that background that I have in construction engineering is serving me well as I meet people, representing an architectural firm. I'm not an architect, but I have a team behind me that I'm confident will do a great job. I'm that initial person that's trying to build a relationship, and it takes time. It could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be a year before anything pops where you get an opportunity. It's just being persistent, staying true to the course, and spending time to go through that. Other things I love to do is I like teaching the Bible. I enjoy food, obviously. I like there should be no surprise there. I love to eat, and I collect cookbooks. So in my travels, I usually will go to the restaurant of the chef of the cookbook that I have. And I have a lot of autographed cookbooks, and I've cooked with many actually very famous chefs that I'm sure a lot of the audience will know. Julia Child, Martha Stewart, the Bam Man, Emeril Lagasse, which I believe I gave him the Bam.
Emerald, yeah.
I was working with him. We did something, and I just said "Bam." He never said a word, and then all of a sudden he's doing it on TV. And I thought, I don't think you get a patent on a word. But Charlie Trotter, one of my favorites, Giuliano Bugiali, an Italian guy. And when I was in Italy a couple of years ago, I was in 11 different kitchens. So I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to mentor folks that are struggling in their career, recently lost their job. I try to give back where I can, and helping business owners and leaders when they're dealing with strategic direction challenges or leadership challenges, or just how do you grow? How do you get to the next level? And that's been, to me, that really says a lot about how we can help one another, is just sharing from experience, things that you've done in your past and where you can plug in. Nobody knows everything, but we all learn from each other. I talk to sales guys and business development people all the time across the country, and we discuss best practices, how we can help one another. I may be working with a client that may be a good fit for a contractor, or vice versa. And until you have those dialogues, you really don't know how you can help somebody. And so I focus on trying to do that. That's a big part of what I do. I like to be the person that somebody thinks of when I've got an issue I got to try to get resolved. Call Jerry, see what he has to say. And if I don't know, I get somebody in my firm. If they don't know, I go out to people that my network. I mean, it's great to have that. So that's a little bit about me. I'm having a blast. I like traveling. I like seeing new people. You and I met, on a boat on a lousy day, and here we are. I'm on your show, so I'm grateful for that. And we just look forward to having more of it.
What was your major in down in North Carolina when you went to school there?
My major was business and psychology. And then graduate school, I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. So I'm pretty good at looking at people,
Yeah.
right? So if you meet with me, don't think I'm always trying to assess like where you are psychologically. It's none of that, but it does give you a good insight into how, people behave and how they think and those kinds of things. But it served me well, but construction is pretty much run through my veins.
You and I, when we talked, you and I have a very similar background. My family outside of Philly, my mother's side, they've been in demolition, recycling, construction since 1888. Still in business today. Grew up down at the recycling yard and was always playing on the cranes and the trucks. And then when I got my license at 16, all the grandsons, none of the granddaughters, the grandsons, everybody had to work in the scrap yard. You had no choice if you wanted, if you wanted
Exactly.
your
Yeah.
license. You had to be there. My Uncle Frank, my first super intendant, scared the heck out of me. And but may he rest in peace. But I learned a lot from him, and I just look back and those were some really, really fond memories. I shoveled asbestos, I laid railroad tracks. I mean, I did all sorts of stuff, and those kind of things mold you. Now listen, my cousins that I grew up
Absolutely.
with, they're running the company right now. I could have stayed there. On my
Right.
dad's side, they
Absolutely.
were they run upholstery furniture down in North Carolina. So when I was in Denver, after I got out of school, I did my retail training at Levitt's. I put more of those little sofa tables together, the lost leaders in the back. I scotch guarded. I was a picker. I worked at custom. I learned everything. And then when it came time for me to move down to Hickory, where they had one hotel and one restaurant in the mid 80s,
Right. Mm.
it was during basically the recession, and people weren't buying sofas, and I was like, I just don't know if this is my bag or not, and so I kind of, gave that up, and I gave up all the family business. I was a sales guy, and uh, I ended up looking for I was in the food industry and I had come down here, but they wanted me to come back up to New York and I'd like to live in the South. It was cheap to live. And I saw an ad in the paper for an ad sales job. And I didn't know what publishing or advertising was, but I had a sales experience. And so these people that I went to interview with, they had 10 magazines and 8 trade shows. And they used to have a furniture magazine, and my parents used to run ads in the magazine. So when they saw my resume come in, we got to bring this kid. I met him when he was like 3 years old in our showroom in the city in New York. And anyway, that's how I got hired. And they threw me on an automotive book. I used to call on all the the OEMs that do the dashboards and the headliners, of course, and then I got thrown on their retail design book, and I was tied to Global Shop. And in '99, Nielsen bought the company out, and that's when I was launching my construction magazine. And that honeymoon lasted about 18 months. And then they sold a couple things off, and then 9/11 happened. And then right after 9/11, about a week before Thanksgiving, they whacked about 50 magazines out of their portfolio. And my little construction book had gotten the axe. And it was making money. It just wasn't enough for the bean counters up there in New York. And so the same year that I launched my magazine in '99, my son was born. So they were both kind of like my kid. And so I flew up to New York. I met with the president, and I said, Mike, you need to sell me this magazine. And he's like, David, we love you. We want you to stay here. You could retire here. And I said, look, Mike, I'm going on the road this week. I'm going down to Texas. I'm going to call on Radio Shack, blah, 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 make my rounds. When I come back, you need to make a decision. And they thought I was bluffing. So I came back and I said, are you going to sell me the magazine? And they said, no. I said, here's my resignation. December 17th, 2001. And everybody told me not to do it. My parents, everybody said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And but I knew where my heart was. And as an athlete, I was always an underdog. I'm like, so 2 months later, I put my first issue out. I had Home Depot on the cover, director of construction, Mark Beers, when they were building about 140 stores a year. And it it was an amazing ride. We launched retail, launched our show, then we launched our healthcare book, launched our show, then we launched our hospitality book, launched our show. I had a little kitchen supplement that we did. I had a networking associate. I mean, we grew so quick. And then I sold my healthcare book, which was great PR for me. Someone bought something that I had built. And I mean, listen, I wasn't going to retire on that, but it was good PR for my company. And then the
Sure.
crash of '08 happened, when the economy,
Right.
the housing market fell off the cliff. And I had a couple partners, I bought them out. And then I kind of rolled through it uh, and then 2020 March came and then everything kind of changed again. And big growing up, you and I are about the same age. So, I went through the oil crisis. I went through the recession,
Oh,
of
yeah.
interest rates, and then the internet, boom, and then the bust. And, I've seen all this stuff. And, it kind of, you got to keep your blinders on, number one. Number two, you got to keep positive. And you have to be able to be flexible to turn on a dime and make a positive out of a negative, whenever you can. And you being in sales, so am I, it's a numbers game. I get no all day long. The more no's you
Oh,
get,
yeah. My
the more yes.
teeth are still hurt.
Yeah, yeah. So there's sometimes yeses come in droves. Sometimes they're split up, but it's really just a numbers game. And everything that I've done though, sports, business, family, listen, I'm a nice Jewish boy from Philly. You being Italian, we're very, very close. It's that whole gig. My mother, she's like, she's driving from Cave Creek right now back to Ohio because they're snowbirds. And she's like, oh yes, I've got beef tips and noodles that we're gonna heat up in the microwave at the hotel. And she's got the whole thing set up for their 3-day ride. So she's giving me her menu for the next 3 days while they're staying at the whatever hotel. And so I laugh when you talk about food and, working. And you know what my favorite thing to do when I was growing up in Pottstown outside of Philly? There was this old hardware store on High Street downtown. And uh, anyway, it was an old hardware store before Home Depot and all that stuff.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah. They were great.
yeah, and anyway, we used to go in there and I'm having a brain fart, and I can't remember the guy's name. But anyway, it was just this old dusty hardware store where they just had everything everywhere. You could
Knew where it was.
yeah, it was right down in High Street, right next to the toy store. Anyway, he used to come over to dinner and uh anyway he used to tell stories and stories and you could just sit there and listen. And but some of the tools that they you go through yard sales, whatever, you'll see something, you're like, what the heck is that? And I'd be like, oh, I know what that is because I was in that guy's store, when I was growing up. And anyway, but you can't replace that stuff. That stuff kind of just lives with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have my erector set, that I built God knows how many things out of. And but like right now, I'm still in construction. I build this thing. I used to do a
Right.
paper,
Yeah.
not 2x4s or nails, but I did it with editorial paper, ink, postage. Now I do it digitally, but every month I build one of these things and, I'm proud of it. How big is it going to be? I have no idea. But uh, it, uh, it's very cool when you're in construction that you can say, I built that, or I
Oh,
worked
yeah.
on that project, or I landed that project, and our team went in there and executed it. And now it's actually in real living space. So being in construction, it's a very valuable
Oh, it's very gratifying. And think about it. If salespeople stopped and construction people stopped, the economy would tank, right? Those are two industries that, if they don't exist, then nothing much matters,
Yeah.
and I've been blessed to be in both of those, in mostly in the construction side of things, and touching that. And all the lumps and bumps and different things you go through out in the field, that helped to shape me to know I don't want to be in the field forever. It's a tough life. And not that getting into sales is not tough, because like you said, you get told no a lot, you're lonely a lot. But ultimately, when you have a deal come through, and it's built, you can say, I had a part of that, and I go to places, I'm sure you can. Most of my career is East Coast and Northeast. I can say, yeah, I did that. Yep, I did that. There's shows that come on. One of my markets as a PM was prison. So there's always a prison show on. And my wife would say, were you involved with that? I said, yeah, that's one of the ones I've been on, So there's a legacy that's there that, it doesn't end just when the project is over, and if there's one thing I learned, with construction and sales, you got to be resilient. If you don't like no, then you definitely don't want to be in sales. But it continues to get you sharp, because when you hear a no, you want to understand, why was there a no? What didn't I do? How can I do it better? What did I miss? And when I talk to other people that are smarter than I am and better than I am in sales, you get ideas, and okay, now you pivot to something else. So it's a very fluid job that we have in sales, that you're always trying to improve. You don't, in my opinion, you don't ever arrive at sales and boom, I made it. It's always a continuous cycle of activity, if you want to stay in it, and you got to keep having fresh legs. So, and you got to eat, and everybody loves to eat. So what better place to meet somebody is over, some food and, cracking some bread together. Do you remember in Philly when, I know I'm reminded of this because Hall and Oates are in the news now because they're suing each other. But do you remember when they used to sing a cappella down at Penn's Landing all the time? I
Yeah.
used to love going down there and seeing that, because you saw all kinds of people.
Believe it or not, Hall and Oates was the first concert that I went to when I was growing up in Allentown, Pennsylvania at the fairgrounds. And
Fairgrounds, yeah.
yeah, so my mother, she used to get her hair done in New York, and anyway, Hall and Oates were in there, and they would get their, John would get his mustache, bleach black, whatever. But anyway, Hall and Oates, for those you don't know it, I mean, they got some, they've got some gold records, no doubt
They
about it.
got
Hall
hits.
and Oates was it, but they were basically, from our area, and if you were from Philly, you gotta know who they are, that whole era. And wow, Hall and Oates, man, that's funny, man.
Yeah, when a Hall and Oates song comes on, radio, I'm listening to Spotify or something, my brain goes right to a cheesesteak, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
you can see yourself sitting somewhere in Philly having a slice or having a cheesesteak, right? It's
Yeah,
amazing. And same with, you hear Billy Joel, you're sitting somewhere in New York City eating something, right? It's just, those memories are like phenomenal.
yeah.
It's something else. So that Northeast hustle, bustle, and energy and ethnicity is really special to me. I mean, when we drive back, we go through Philly, go to New Jersey. I always get, two hands are on the wheel, but as soon as I get into Philly, New Jersey, my right hand goes right on the horn, and it just stays there.
Yeah.
Right? It just stays there. Oh man.
So let's talk about the roller coaster. March 2020 comes, everything basically comes to a halt. Very No one really knew what was going to go on. Now, 3 to 4 years later, we're out of the tunnel, couple speed bumps, hindrances still there. And but all in all, if you're still standing today, congratulations. You've weathered the storm, and but it's still a little choppy out there in the bay. Talk about how you weathered the storm, and what lessons our listeners out there in commercial construction coffee talk might find of interest.
Sure. So as we roll into 2020, I was so excited about the year because I had, in October, my wife and I had a 3-week trip to Italy planned, right? So fast forward, that we didn't go anywhere in October, okay?
Right.
And I remember in March of 2020, I was at a meeting with clients in Washington, D.C., and that's when COVID just started percolating a little bit, getting attention, and people were beginning then to kind of keep their distance from people. They weren't wearing masks and they weren't going through the sanitizing, every 10 seconds, but they were keeping their distance. And the following week after I came, that weekend when I came back home, I was supposed to be leaving for LA the following week, and over the weekend, LA just, COVID just exploded. So, they were closing up. I didn't want to go that far and get stuck in a hotel room or just, I couldn't go out anywhere. So I canceled the trip, which was probably one of my more genius moves I've ever made, but, there you go. And I realized, okay, so what does a BD person do when you can't see anybody and nobody's really in the office? Everybody's scared. We don't know what's coming. You get on Zoom calls, right? How many of us were the first 6 months of COVID? It was like a Zoom call bonanza. We were all on Zoom calls, right? And I realized very soon, in fact, one of my clients said to me after a call, he said, Jerry, I don't know a guy like you that wants to be in front of people, needs to be in front of people, have conversation. What are you going to do? You got to reinvent yourself somehow, because you can't do that. And that stayed with me. I don't think that person really knew what they said to me, but it stayed with me because I couldn't reach out to clients. Especially in the beginning, when people started working remote, it was like things were quiet. Things settled down, and I couldn't call people and say, hey, what do you got coming up? What projects are you working on? Because you'd be tone deaf, right? And your relationship would be impaired if that's the tactic you took. So I didn't want to be that type of salesperson, right? Just to be completely oblivious, go after it and get in a project. It goes against what I said earlier, and that is chase the relationship, not the project, right? And there was a lot of guys doing those calls. Hey, what do you got coming up? Well, nobody's working. So what do you got coming up? So, and then I know the audience may be astounded by this, but I love doing the old cold calls. Show up, walk in, ask for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Are they there? Can I talk to them? That virtually was dead. And I think since COVID, the cold call, traditional cold call that I learned on, nobody does anymore, and because nobody's a lot of people aren't in the office, so it makes it challenging. And I found during COVID too, the early months, people were really willing to talk. Like we were almost desperate to have somebody call and get on a Zoom call, because there's really nothing else to do. You weren't really pushed for getting work out the door because there wasn't any door to get out of and work. So I took the time to really get to know the people, understand the person, the man. If I was calling you during that time, Dave, tell me about the man, Dave. Help me understand. What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? How's your family? How your kids are home from school now? How is it living with them 24/7 now? How are they dealing with it? How's your wife dealing with it? All of that rolling in. And I think dealing with those likes and dislikes, I think people respected that. They looked for that social interaction that wasn't transactional, that most people think of sales as transactions. I'm thinking of sales as relationship building. One of my mentors from years ago, I'm dating myself, but Harvey McKay Envelopes, a great speaker, a great salesperson. He has the McKay 66. If anybody Googles McKay 66, there'll be more things listed on that you want to find out about people than anywhere. But it taught me you got to go through multiple conversations to gain information about the people you're dealing with and be able to let them know that you care about them beyond the transaction of getting a job with them. And that was one of the lessons I really learned is reaching out and trying to understand people. And that created bonds of, empathy, of caring, of helping, all those kind of touchy-feely things. But we were at a time in our lifetime that you needed to be more touchy-feely than business related, right? And, that carried over into my working relationships once COVID kind of settled down and people were actually, getting back to work. It was slow. And it was a time of self-reflection for me, like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to do something different? What can you do different? And what stuck with me is the reinventing myself, is I had to focus more, again, I'll say probably third or fourth time, the relationship, not the project, because the project comes and goes, the relationship stays. And I think out of COVID, and I still believe this today, there was a genuineness of people that came out of the COVID lockdown. What does that mean? That means people opened up. It became genuine. I became vulnerable. I said, oh, I'm really struggling that I can't meet people. And people, oh, well, it'll come around, whatever they would say. And you had that companionship that really opened up doors for communication that I hope we never go through another COVID, but there were things that came out of that I believe made me stronger in what I do and my approach to how to do it and how to help people. Because we all have a story and we all have, as you pointed out, paths that we come from that shape us. Well, COVID is no different. We can all look back, how did COVID change me? How did COVID make me better? What things am I not doing that I should be doing? And what things am I doing that I got to stop doing? What can I add? So, you mentioned it. We got the challenges still. We got logistics. We got labor issues. We got material shortage. Money's tight. There's rumors of wars. All of those things are there. But you know what? As you said, you got to be positive. You got to work through it. And talking to other people that are going through something similar and understanding how they're getting through it helps each other to figure out, yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought of it. I never looked at it that way. Yeah, how about that? And crazy as it may sound, in 2020, I probably sold 3 or 4 major projects towards the end of that year, which shocked the heck out of me. And clients that had multiple projects, no less, that we were on a call together, a Zoom call together, and we didn't know each other. We were talking, and I got a call after that. Hey, I heard you say this. Do you do this? This is what my firm does. Yeah, okay. So, it was refreshing, I think, to have to stop, look, because you had no other alternative other than to stop, look, and listen to what you're doing and how you can improve. I had one of my contractor friends said COVID was the time that we rewrote our operations manual. We weren't doing what we weren't building. So take the time to do those things that you don't want to do when your people are out in the field, when you're hustling, bustling, and work's coming, very fast, right? So the people that did that, those kinds of things, I think right now feel much better off that they use that time wisely and that they invested in their company, even invest in their people to just make sure that when we come through this, we've learned and we're better and we can better serve our clients from doing that.
When I had my 10th anniversary show in Jacksonville in January of 2020, did my first cocktail party in Coconut Grove with a mall that was getting renovated. And I was up in Milwaukee looking for hotels for my retreat. And anyway, I was supposed to go to I think Tom Hanks got the bug and everything got shut down. They canceled March Madness. DU was playing Ohio State in the Horseshoe in Columbus. So I was going to go up and meet my parents and go to the game, and everything got shut down. And I was fighting with my printer, saying, look, half the people my magazine goes to, their offices are closed. I don't want to print all these copies. They're just going to get not delivered. It's a waste of paper and ink. And he's like, you've been a publisher forever. You understand economies of scale. Once the press is open, and so I bit the bullet. I was doing 6 issues bi-monthly. And when I look back, I put that issue out in March, but I just had my event. I would normally send contracts for the following year. I was a print face-to-face file. My whole life was basically frozen. And
Right.
and I just bought my mic. And I was going to do my podcast. I was going to go start doing interviews while I was on the road at construction sites. That was my plan. And
Right. Yeah.
that went out the window. And
Yeah, it's a good plan, but circumstances change.
yeah, so I just started kind of winging this thing. Listen, I was off. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like, look, I'm just gonna make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You got to learn from them. And so I just kind of, winged it. And my editor, and my artist, we sat back in the month of April was like probably one of the months that I remember most because it was I put my March, April issue out, and then I would get up in the middle of the night. My wife would be like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I got to go think." And my editor, my artist said, look, let's just go digital. We'll do a small press run and let's see where it goes. And I haven't looked back since. And then I stopped printing the magazine, went 100% digital. Never had a million people hitting my website, let alone, close to 4
Fantastic.
million. Yeah, and
Wow.
I'm a completely different company than I was in March of
Good.
2020. Even though I'm still a publisher, I'm a content creator. Uh, I took some digital classes, thought I knew everything I didn't, and I learned more about my business and about myself over the
Right.
last 4 years than I thought that I've lived in I'll be 61 at the end of June. So I'm dating myself. I'm not, I'm not shy. And, but so many companies, what you said that I've talked to, whether it's been here on, the podcast or on the phone or whatever, they all said they had some of the best years because they learned more about their company. They learn more about their people. They learn that their people, they can trust them to work out of their house or be remote. And if they probably could have taken on more projects if they could have found more PMs or supers,
Right.
if
Sure.
if they were available. And you never want to bite off more than you can chew because your reputation, delivery and being on time and on budget. And so when I look back at all those things, but one of the most important things that you said is that it's not about the project, it's about the person that might have 50 projects that you're doing. And that's where your relationship has got to be. You can't worry about, hey, are you building XYZ retail or whatever? But I know the architect who does that, and he's working on about 60 other projects. You need to build a relationship with that person or that
Yes.
contractor or whoever, because you don't know where your next sale is going to be. And and I know people get sick of Zoom, but it's not going anywhere, whether you do use Teams or Zoom or whatever. This is, now you don't have to drive 2 hours to look at a punch list for a little item. You can do it right here on Zoom, or you can
Yeah. Oh,
text
yeah.
on this right here, your phone is the best tool that you can ever have because if you're connected to the world, there are 8 billion people on the planet. You should have all your
Yep.
contacts in here. You should have a digital business card on it. And I know that if I get a text, 90% of the people that get a text are more likely to answer that text than they are an email. And this phone is your best tool that you can have to stay connected, whether it's business, athletics, personal. I mean, it just in general in life. And the other thing that I think a lot of people learned was that there's more to life than just work. And there's definitely that work-life
True.
balance. And so when I look back over the last 3 4 years, just like yourself, I haven't really changed that much, but I've learned a lot. And you gotta have fun because may having fun and
Yeah.
just makes your days
That's
go
it.
that much quicker. I don't have time for negative people and negativity. I got to get rid of it. I just want to put positive thoughts in my head and when I can, like listen, I do the thing with the RCA every month. That's kind of my gig right now. I'm just about the end of my permitting process. I just got my porta potty for my empty nester house that I'm building. My wife and I are acting as the contractor. I just got my certificate, and I think I just got my septic approved. I'm waiting for my couple other plans, and hopefully I'll start breaking ground in early June. But it's been a long 4.5 months. First, they made me change my address. Then they didn't like where my septic was going to go. Then they needed me to get another topography graph, map, and all this stuff, one hurdle over another. And then now they're in the final stages. Probably, hey, we need the licenses for all your MEP guys, and but it's all been a learning experience, and I've learned a lot. So and my wife's she's a residential contractor, interior designer, so we've never done a ground up. So we wanted it for a portfolio, but we're going through all this stuff and we're watching all the YouTube videos and
Oh,
inspections and
yeah.
all this stuff. And so it's going to be exciting, but I've learned so much in the last 3 or 4 years that, uh, and like I said, I used to be print face to face. Now I'm a digital person, but I'm still kind of doing the same thing, but I've kind of tweaked things and, it's been exciting. I never learned more than I thought I did. And, I miss seeing my peeps, that I used to see a lot more on the road. But in general, I like to call 10 people a day on the phone. That's my goal, is to talk to someone on the phone. Even it was Zoom's great, but talking to people on the phone, it's just a really nice thing because I send so many emails a day, or whatever I'm doing. But having those conversations, you can really, really find out where people are. You can hear it in their voice if you're sharp and you listen. And so hearing all that, it's just reinforces everything that I've seen, the last 3 or 4 years, everything you just said, whether it's, your past, your enjoyment of food, talking to people, giving up the family business, going on the thing, live in different parts of the country. And, I'm just a damn Yankee down in Atlanta. Half the population down here is from the north.
With work,
Transplants.
I want to work with people that I know, like, and trust, right? Before it was, I'll work with anybody. Now we're trying to be not necessarily, eliminating people, but it's nicer when you're on a job site where everybody can kind of get along, work together, nobody's throwing anybody under the bus. And that takes, some priority to make that happen. So that's something that I think has come through. And you and I with sales, when I peel the artichoke, I knew I wanted to get one food reference in, so that's it. When I peel the artichoke, the basic essence of sales is what? Having a conversation. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're in sales, but you're not selling. You're having a conversation which will ultimately lead to, I think this guy can meet my need. Hey, and you have that dialogue. So those are some things that I learned, through COVID that I think has made me stronger. It hasn't made my job much easier, but I'm dealing with it in more of a positive way, being resilient and exuding the energy that after being told no, 10 times in a row, you can get discouraged, right? But you know what? The next guy is the guy for me.
Yeah.
And you got to share that with other people too, because there's a lot of discouraged people out there, whether you're a PM, whether you're a sales guy, just say, what, these are all cycles you got to go through. That's the industry we're in.
Oh, yeah.
Is the industry we're in.
So what I was going to say is, so if you're out there and you're looking for an architecture firm to partner up with on a project, Jerry, how would someone reach out to you, to bounce some questions off, or maybe they want to talk about some of the cookbooks that you have or what have you? How would someone reach out to you?
Yeah, I love to hear from everybody. It doesn't matter what you're calling me about, but as far as business related with Bowen Architecture, you can reach me. My cell phone's the best, 216-554-2885. Letter J, DeLiberato, which is deliberate with an O instead of an E. J DeLiberato at rlba.com. And I'd love to chat with you about any issues related to construction, just general stuff, personnel issues, wherever that is. And, maybe we can help each other. We're in the same boat.
Yep. So there you go. So if you're looking for an architect or someone to partner up with the project, and give Jerry a call, email him up in Cleveland, and you guys can have a talk. And if you're interested in food or whatever, you might get down that tangent. You might not even talk about the job. You might be talking about food and family and all that other stuff. If someone wants to reach, what's that?
I do get frequent calls from people. Hey, I'm going to Dallas. You got any restaurant recommendations?
Yeah.
Right. And I'll flip them one or two. Right. So, I should be a restaurant critic, people have said.
Yeah. Listen, if anyone wants to reach me, I'm at David C at ccr-mag.com. Listen, I met Jerry on the cruise, but normally I'll get a press release or whatever, and I'll like it, and I'll reach out and say, hey, have you ever been on a podcast, or would you like to be a guest on my show? But we had the Northeast connection, so I thoroughly enjoyed this call. But listen, the bottom line is this: it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. So if you don't send me something or reach out to me to get on, it's very tough getting in the magazine. But if you don't send me a press release or something of that nature, or leave me a voicemail or reach out to me, I don't know what you're doing. So send it to me. Don't judge the book by the cover. Let us do it. And listen, we look at everything. It could be an anniversary. It could be a new product release. It could be a case study, an anniversary for your company. We post all sorts of stuff all day long. So if you have stuff, we're all about content and data. Data is addicting. So send it to us. We'll find a place for it. We got plenty of social media platforms that we post on every day. And it's win-win. We post it, we send you the URL. It's good for your SEO, which is your search engine optimization, which basically how Google finds you on the web. And it's a win-win. So if you've got anything that you think that is newsworthy or should get some publicity, send it to me. I turnaround time, my TAT is probably 24, 48 hours. We come back to you and let us be the let us look at stuff, because we consume it all day long. I mean, I can't get enough of it. And and free PR is good PR. So send us and let us take a look. So, Jerry, as we finish up, if there was one positive thought or phrase that you'd like to leave with our listeners as we're basically almost at the end of the second month of Q2 as we finish up and then go through the remainder of the year, what would it be?
Man, that's a tough one. I I probably have two or three, but I'll just give you this one is that what I've learned is the past is a reference point, not a residence, right? So don't get stuck in the past. Look forward, and be pulled by the future, not pushed by the past. So the past is a reference point, not a resident. And specifically for my construction friends in New Jersey, if it doesn't fit, get a bigger sledge.
Yeah. I'm gonna steal that. All right.
You can steal it. All these are for the taking.
Yeah, that was awesome. Every day I go out and I do my trek 5, 6 miles, and that was my New Year's resolution that wanted to do 365 days. I don't know, 1,680 miles. So like from here to Atlanta to Denver, I think that was the distance. Anyway, after the first month, one day I was up cooling off at the pickleball courts, and I was like, oh, I should probably just do a little video. So now I do a video every day, and I always leave a little positive thought. And the one I did the other day was, if you want results, you got to take action. You can't sit back.
Right, you got to do something.
Yeah, you got to do something. And you can't go. I always tell people, always be moving forward. Don't look backwards because you're not going that way. You can't change the scoreboard. You can't change history. You can't change the past. It's done. You're better off. You can change your future though. Depending on, hey, if there's a fork in the road, hope you'll make the choices wisely. But you can change your future, but you can't change the past. But your past is very important because that's what molded you who you are. But moving forward, you can't look backwards. You got to always be, looking forward.
And you don't be afraid of the future either, because it's coming anyway.
Oh yeah, listen, with AI and everything else, I mean, technology is at warp speed. And if you don't listen, fear is just one of those things, you can't be scared of it. You got to go for it. And it's like getting bucked off a horse. Hey, guess what? Dust yourself off, put in that saddle strap and swing your leg over and get back on that horse. Okay. Because fear, it's probably your best exhilarator of yourself to go moving forward. You have to face fear head on. Can't be scared, because it's probably not that bad.
Agree.
Your mind probably makes it a lot worse. You got to train your mind that you can do it. It's just like the other day I added up. My wife goes, "God, you were out there a long time." I'm like, "Yeah, I added another 1.5 miles on my run. My body would just wanted to keep going. I just decided to do another loop." And so fear, take it head on. Well, this has been awesome. A couple things before we finish. Number one, if you're on a construction site, we want you to be safe. All right. Once you get home, we want you to be able to eat dinner with your partner, your wife, your son, your kids, your cats, turtles, whatever you got there. We want you to get some good sleep and be able to go do it the following day. Number two, the heat's coming. All right. Right now, I've been layering up, running, and getting my body ready for the humidity in the summer and running in the heat. But the bottom line is, if you're out on the construction site, you make sure that you stay hydrated. The athlete in me, when you get dehydrated, you get headaches. When you get headaches, you get hurt or you make mistakes. Same thing on the construction site. Make sure you stay hydrated. Put some electrolytes in your water bottle. You'll feel better. You'll sleep better at night. Trust me on that. And lastly, hit the like button. Okay, become a subscriber. We want to make sure that this episode, is found by the algorithms on YouTube, and people can find this episode. And we thank everybody out there for, being a subscriber and coming to the site and consuming content. I couldn't have done without you, so thank you so much. So Jerry, I always come up. I rarely come up in the winter, but if wherever up in the Northeast at the same, we're going to connect, and
Definitely.
it was a pleasure meeting you in Cleveland, in Chicago
Right.
on the cruise.
That was
And
fun.
yeah, no, and you know what? Listen, everybody. I flew up that morning. There were thunderstorms in the south. My plane was late. I got in late. I didn't think I was going to make the boat, but I trekked. I got on the Orange Line. I got downtown. I barely made but I was like, how many people? I bet you, bad weather always stops people. Oh, I'm not going to go in the traffic. I don't. Everybody showed. It was awesome.
Right. Right.
And
It was fantastic.
yeah, it was great. So all in all, an awesome day. And and once again, you never know. You just go. Do it. It's not the end of the world. It's rain. It's just a little rain.
You never know who you come across or you're introduced to.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jerry, say goodbye from Cleveland to all our listeners out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Myself and Cleveland wish you a great Friday and a fantastic weekend. And thanks for listening, and hope to be catching up with you guys soon via phone or meeting at an event in person.
Awesome. And I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Beaufort Dam on Lake Lanier, about 25, 30 miles out of downtown, north of downtown Atlanta. And everybody, TGIF, have a great weekend. If you're watching any lacrosse, go Pios. It's going to be, if you want to see any good lacrosse, right now, the best 8 teams are left. It's going to be unbelievable weekend. If you want to see what lacrosse is like, watch this weekend, because this is where the men are separated from the boys, and the last 4 guys standing are going to go for all the marbles over Memorial Day weekend. So with that said, we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. And Jerry, pleasure. Yeah. And
Thanks, Dave.
really appreciate all the feedback. And we will see you all next time. Cheers, everybody.